You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1173. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we are helping you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. We do this show 3 to 5 days a week, depending on sponsors and how much content we have. And this whole month has been around marketing. It's been marketing month. So we talked about digital marketing. We've talked about online reviews and can you do that ethically? We've talked about workshops and course creation. We've talked about some around social media. We talked about marketing a mega practice. Lisa, who we had back in episode 1170, has 80 clinicians in her practice. I mean, just amazing things. And then the last two were all about optimizing your website. So a lot of great content this month. Next month, if you are diving into our next series, it's our Better Mental Wellness series. So in the next episode, we're actually going to be talking about psychedelic assisted therapy. Then we're going to be talking about self-compassion, deeper mindfulness, chronic illness, being a psychotherapist that has autism, highly sensitive people, healthy sexuality, all sorts of really interesting things coming up next month. So you're not going to want to miss those podcasts that are coming next month as well. So I am loving doing this series on marketing because when I first started my counseling practice, I filed the LLC, or in Michigan, PLLC, in 2006. But that was only because I was working as a 1099 contractor. I would say that I started it in 2009. And it was just a side gig to pay off student loan debt. And then I kept supervising people for their license, and they kept saying, "Hey, can I work for you?" And so I kind of became an accidental group practice owner. And it's one of those things that, boy, I wish I had the content or the podcasts or the membership communities like we have back then, because I know that I really would have been able to just grow faster. But that's why we're doing this marketing month. And I'm so excited to have Alyssa Mancao with us, who is a licensed clinical social worker and group practice owner based in Los Angeles, California. In addition to her work as a therapist, she's a writer for various media outlets where she talks about communication skills, self-trust, and navigating relationships. She's been featured in Vogue, Elle, The Knot, and HuffPost. Alyssa, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you, Joe. I'm so excited to be here. And I was so interested listening to everything that you have coming up. That's so exciting.
Yeah, we're in full planning mode for the Group Practice Boss Conference in May. And, the first day, which, that we opened tickets at the time of this recording was like a week ago. I think 20% of the tickets sold on day one. So I haven't looked at the ticket numbers now, but we're like super excited about the interest in this conference.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, I want to start with Instagram. So you were one of the first therapists to really embrace Instagram, to dig in. First, tell me about that experience. And then I'm sure a couple things have shifted over the years with you on Instagram.
Yes. And so many things have shifted. So I started my Instagram account, I believe it was either 2018 and 2019. And this is when there were very few, I want to say, even just professionals on Instagram. It was more of just the influencer route, like fashion, fitness, but you didn't see a lot of people in professional fields on the app yet. And I was in the Philippines and I thought, I want to create content that makes therapy feel accessible, especially for communities of color, because it's not something we often talk about in our worlds. And so I felt that if I created this account and I am the face of it, maybe it might get people, maybe it might help destigmatize therapy a little bit. And then it wasn't until maybe 2019, 2020, especially during the pandemic, everybody is isolating and not feeling so great for obvious reasons, that the content really started to grow, and so did the page.
Mm. So as it started to grow, what did you see happening within that growth? Like, who are you attracting? What was working?
Yeah, so just from an analytics perspective, I was attracting a lot of people between the ages of 25 to 40, and they were really at the time, they were really interested in content that talked about how to navigate anxiety, how to navigate depression, and also how to communicate. I noticed at the time, because it's changed over the years, that the content that was doing really well was the type of content that gave people scripts. If, for example, instead of shutting down, you can say, "Hey, I need a moment. Can we circle back in 30 minutes?" Instead of jumping to conclusions, you can ask, "I'm curious what you meant by that. Can we talk about it more?" People were really resonating with these so-called scripts because it gave them the opportunity to practice communication skills that maybe was not modeled for them.
Mm. Yeah. And how did you see that start to increase people coming into your private practice?
Yeah. And I really liked what you said, that you became an accidental group practice owner. I really like that because I feel like that's what happened with me. I didn't see myself becoming a group practice owner until social media really allowed for just the advancement of growth, that I decided I would open up a larger practice to be able to offer the referrals for the people who were coming to meet with me. But it people were able to resonate with the content and think to themselves, "Hey, this is what I'm going through right now in my life. And maybe this is somebody that has the skills to be able to support me in this part of my journey." So it was just also great in being able to attract your quote unquote ideal client, because the things that I'm writing about are things that I do want to help people with in therapy.
Yeah. So tell me about when you started adding into your group practice. Like, when did you start adding people?
I think it was the end of 2021. And the only reason I really remember that is because I did not meet with them in person. I did my interviews all virtually. Everything was virtual because that was just during the time where we weren't allowed to go out. So I believe it was at the end of 2020.
Mm. And take me through that process. I know a lot of our people in our membership are in California, and California is really kind of hard nosed about like W-2s, and like, how did you limit your risk as you were bringing people in? Specifically under kind of how hiring in California looks.
Oh, that's such a great question. So it was for me a lot of consulting with my colleagues, a lot of research online. And I was really lucky, to have friends who are lawyers so that I can consult with them and they can give me feedback. But also, there is a Facebook group called the California Group Practice Owners Support Group. And it's run by just these very well versed group practice owners that are just so incredibly versed in California law that every time I did something, I would ask in the group first, and I would get so much feedback that it allowed me to minimize my risk as I was growing.
Mm. And what was it about kind of that structure that it felt like it minimized some of that risk?
Because I got to learn from other people. Um, I got to learn from other people, and I got to really just build a network of other group practice owners who have been there, who have done that, and they were able to guide me. So, for example, I don't know if people know this, but in California, or hopefully people know this, but in California, as a private practice or therapy practice, you can't be an LLC for whatever reason. And I learned that through communicating with different group members.
Yeah. So as you started to grow, I know that some people, like when you're well known, especially, with
Mhm.
Instagram and other things, you're doing writing, it's really hard to fill up the other clinicians in your practice. What have you done to be able to fill them up so everyone isn't just like, I want to work with Alyssa?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Could you ask that again?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that a common thing is that people want to often work with the owner, and especially if you're known through Instagram or you're known through your writing. How do you make sure that when people come to your practice that they don't always just want to always see you, but then they want to see the other clinicians in your group practice?
Okay, so I had to learn how to do this because I didn't want people to think I was hitting them with the bait and switch because that was often what was happening. People would say, "Well, what about you? Can I see you?" And so I would make it very clear. I started to make it very clear in my captions that the clinicians in the practice are accepting new clients. And when they schedule their initial consultation, I made it very clear that while I do the consultation with you, I am the one who matches you with the best fit for a therapist in the practice. And it took a little bit of my own practice to get used to doing that and handling potential clients' questions. And I also reassured them by letting them know that I do meet regularly with the clinicians so that they are so that I am aware of what is happening with them, but also um, I let them know that anybody that I is somebody that I interview and selected is somebody that I really do deeply trust to do this work. And I think being able to say those words with clients was really enough for me to successfully hand them off to my clinicians.
Yeah, I think that saying something like I handpicked these people. We do trainings regularly. A lot of our consulting, people hear me on the podcast, kind of similar thing. But to know that we all work together as consultants, and one thing that we do, and obviously this wouldn't work in a counseling practice, but if there's one of our consultants that's better suited for a session or two, the main consultant or the lead consultant can always say, "Hey, go work with Andrew. He's really good at W-2s. He went through this whole national HR program." Or go work with Joe. You have goals around speaking or writing a book. You can work with him for a couple of your sessions, and we don't charge them anything extra. And I think what that's doing is it's removing that worry that, like, what if I don't get what I need from that clinician or from that consultant? And I think that when you're doing something like what you're talking about, it's so smart, because then that client knows, okay, like, this is the best person for me. They're training with Alyssa. It's all kind of one modality. So then there's a consistency amongst the therapists within the practice.
Absolutely. And another thing is I do let them know if they need to reach out to me. They can email me if they have any questions, they can email me. And I think just them knowing that I'm an email away if they have feedback has been really helpful. And then none of them have ever emailed me. Or,
Hmm.
it's almost like it's just nice knowing that it's there.
Yeah. It's like with our membership, we do a 90-day money back guarantee, and we used to do
Hmm.
30 days. And then it was like the only time someone has had to ask for money is like if their mom gets sick and they're like, you know what, I thought I wanted to start a practice, or I thought I wanted a group practice, but my mom's sick and, I got to go work with her. It's been those
Hmm.
kind of things, instead of like, oh, we don't like the program. Like, once they're in there, they're like, oh, this is awesome. I feel so
Yeah,
supported.
yeah. Exactly.
As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using Therapy Notes. They make billing, scheduling, note taking, telehealth, and e prescribe incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research and see for yourself. Therapy Notes is the #1 highest rated EHR system available today, with a 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and on Google. All you have to do is click the link below or type promo code Joe on their website over at therapynotes.com and receive a special 2-month trial absolutely free. Again, that's therapynotes.com, and use promo code Joe on the website. If you're coming from another EHR, Therapy Notes will also import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost, so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time and try Therapy Notes. Just use promo code Joe at checkout. Now, how do you think through growth? Because I think that one thing, as you're marketing your practice, is thinking through, like, when to add more clinicians versus when to put time into marketing to get more clients coming in. How do you balance that, like, staffing versus new intakes kind of flow?
It's ongoing communication with the clinicians, and I feel like this is something that I have to assess every few months because as we know about the field, it can be very up and down when it comes to referrals. But usually, what I will do is I will gauge the availability of the current clinicians available. So if they are about 85 to 90% full, that is when I will hire or onboard a new person. That way, when I'm doing the consultations, I'm not limited to the amount of times I can offer them. So I can give
Mm,
them a plethora of availability. So I will only increase when current clinicians are about 85 to 90 because I also don't want them to get exactly to 100. Either just because I really care about their mental health and I really care about their workload. And they will tell me, I'm done, I don't want any more. And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to hire somebody new. Or they'll say, I can take on a few more. So it's really close communication with my employees.
mm, yeah. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about you growing things outside of the practice through
Mhm.
writing. I mean, you've been featured in some pretty heavy hitters in regards to magazines or publications. How did that start for you?
It started again in 2020 during the pandemic. It was initially Mind Body Green that had reached out to me. And I can't remember the first article that they asked me to write, but they asked me to write an article for them. And I said, sure. And then after that, I would just start pitching ideas to them. And I was regularly writing for them for a period. And I do think because of that initial discovery, and they said that they found me through my Instagram. And at that time, I was doing a lot of writing in my posts and in my caption, and they wanted me to just I believe they saw something, a post, and they said, hey, can you turn this into an article? And then through that initial I suppose engagement with them, I believe other companies were able to see my writing and seek me out. So I've written for The Knot, I've written for Mind Body Green. Selena Gomez has a mental health company called Wondermind. I've written for them. And I just wrote an article for a health and wellness company on just navigating the holidays and being mindful around consumption. So I do believe it
Mm,
all started with the content that I was creating on Instagram.
wow. Now, when it comes to pitching yourself, so if someone isn't already known on Instagram, what would you
Mhm.
recommend in regards to pitching yourself to publications like that?
I think it's really important to either create a portfolio, whether you just open up Canva and create a simple portfolio with a link to your blog or a link to your WordPress or topics that you're passionate about. It's really important to find ways that you can stand out because oftentimes a lot of these companies they are receiving pitches from people, but you want to be able to say, "Hey, this is what I am, who I am, this is my expertise, here's my portfolio, here's my resume, and here's what I talk about." I would love to see if creating articles or bodies of work for you would be a good fit. But you want to have something you can show them. Even if it's a blog on your website.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. One thing that I've found is when you do either get an article or a quote, say you're working with someone that just quotes you, um, those those authors that are freelancing often are freelancing for lots of different publications. So, to keep their contact information, to reach out to them and say, I know you wrote this and quoted me in this thing. If you're writing anything else, here's 3 areas that if you need a last minute quote, just let me know. And then even in building that portfolio, instead of it always being your own writing, if you're quoted in some things, you've written some things, then that starts to build out that you're an authority, and that you're someone that is an authority that's been quoted in places in addition to having written places.
Exactly. And I would suggest put it on your website. Put it on your website,
Mm,
under services, because that's what I have on my website. It has services, group practice, campaigns, and writing. And then that's actually how I was able to be hired for my most latest freelance writing opportunity was they said, I saw on your website that you offer writing. Would you mind writing for our company? So add it to your website and just describe a little bit about what your writing style is like and what you feel comfortable writing about. And similar to
mm,
therapy, you will attract the clients that align with you.
mm. Now, when you think about just ongoing marketing in your group practice, beyond Instagram, beyond the writing, what else are you thinking through?
Beyond Instagram, beyond the writing, well, that's a really good question because I feel like social media has been such a big part of marketing within my career. And it's been really important for me to just stay on top of what is growing in social media. So that in outside of Instagram, that includes Threads. I have found has been, I don't know if you guys have talked about Threads, but I have found that Threads has been a really great avenue for growing
Mm.
and increasing referrals. And it's great because you don't have to be on camera. You just post your thoughts, and they are thoughts that people can really resonate with. And then when people resonate with a thought, they want to see who you are, and then everything just flows from there.
Mm. For those that aren't on Threads, tell us more about that.
Okay, so think of it's pretty much very similar to Twitter, where you are allowed a certain number of characters, and you it's basically one big worldly group chat. You write out what your thoughts are, and then you select post, and then anybody can view it and engage with it. So, for example, one of my most recent threads today that did really well, I wrote heal so that you don't confuse emotional unavailability for chemistry. And a lot of people really resonated with that and engaged with that. And that allowed me to just increase the referrals for my practice. So, oftentimes, as therapists, we are saying very helpful things in our therapy sessions and to our friends. And an avenue like Threads, which is again is very similar to what Twitter was, it just allows us to create these really bite-sized phrases and send it out into the community for anybody who would resonate with it.
Mm. So social media, that's been kind of primary for you. What are you having your employees do to market themselves, or are you having them do anything beyond what you're doing?
So that's a good question. That is one of the benefits of my group practice is I don't require them to market themselves. If they can, if they want to, but for the most part, they don't. And they don't have to. So I don't have them create pages for themselves. I don't have them really put themselves out there. But what we are doing and working on together is creating workshops and then offering them either free or low cost for the community. So it's just like a different kind of marketing so that people can get to know who we are and what we offer.
Hmm. Yeah, well, the last question I always have is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
That's a really good question. I would want them to try different things in order to maximize the growth of their practice. I think because the field in which we all were quote unquote raised in has these very specific rules about what you can and can't do, it can essentially limit our ability to express ourselves. But I do think there is a way that you can express yourself in the field to maximize your growth while still maintaining professional boundaries. I would also want them to know to just rest because I do a lot for the community. And I hope that they can all find things that allow them to pour back into themselves.
Mm, so awesome. If people want to connect with you and follow your work, where should we send them?
At Alyssa Marie Wellness is my Instagram.
And what's the best website?
So I have two websites. If they want to see just strategies on if they want to see my group practice and how it's run, they can go on www.alyssamariewellness.com. But if they also want to see the media side of things, where I'm market and promote my writing and other services that don't have anything to do with the group practice, they can go on www.lia, Lia, and then my last name, Mancao, Mancao.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
I think one of the big things this month in interviewing all these folks doing marketing well is figuring out kind of what's your corner of the market. Are you into Instagram? Are you into Threads? Are you into video, writing long form blogs? Figuring out for yourself what's your specialty that you enjoy, that you want to keep doing. And then looking at the numbers, is it actually moving the needle forward? And so understanding that, sometimes the things that may work for Alyssa may not work for you, or they may. So thinking through, okay, what is it here that I'm trying to do with the business to be able to grow a little bit differently? is so important. Now, we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. Therapy Notes is the best EHR out there. They help you with your billing, with your HIPAA-compliant video, to just stay organized. Head on over to therapynotes.com and use promo code JOE at checkout to get a couple months for free. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.